Pyro is quite an essential element in Genshin at the start, especially when it comes to melting the pesky spiky ice shields of those large cryo slimes. However, I could not for the life of me properly master the fully charged aimed shot, so I thought, I need a pyro user that's easier for me to control. I started getting fond of catalysts because of Lisa, and so my friends brought to my attention a certain cute little Bernie catalyst, especially since she was a rate up 4-star on the banner during that time. And she's a lawyer on top of that. I mean, how could I resist that after watching legal K-dramas for a while? I was able to get her at that time, and I was so excited that I would nickname myself as Yanfei Haver in my chats with my friends. Although I have changed it since because, you're supposed to say Haver when referring to owning 5 stars. Ever since, I have not been using any other pyro character, to the point that even for just lighting up torches, she has to be the one to do it. I mean, I'd probably be using 2 pyro characters if the grumpy yet princely winery owner decided to come home to my character inventory, but that day hasn't happened yet, so here we are with me only having one go-to character to torture in the Mondstadt talent domain. So it's clearly no surprise that she's also triple crowned, and also thankfully she's C6, so I get to stop worrying about that now, unlike with those stupid starters. Anyway, she's amazing, smart, and lovely, and she can get you out of sticky situations, which is why I'm here to basically read out her resume to you all, I guess. Yanfei is one of those characters that unfortunately did not make any appearance in the Archon quest, and just materialized out of thin air as soon as the game wanted to introduce a housing system. But that doesn't mean that her presence doesn't have any significance to the Genshin lore. Many characters appear outside of the Archon quest, but have huge implications on the world building and history of the nations they live in. I mean, think about it. It wouldn't make sense for the land of contracts to not have notable people who specialize in, the fulfillment of contracts. Because of this, I think Yanfei's special role in Liyue is not exactly to provide us with more information on the nation's secrets and history, but rather to give us a glimpse into the daily lives of Liyue's citizens and their worldview. Interestingly, this role set aside for her in Liyue's world building also impacts the way she's depicted as a lawyer, because I feel like our usual image of lawyers is that they always look badass going to court, raising their voices, and pointing their fingers at their opponents to prove their point. However, interestingly, we don't get the opportunity to really see Yanfei go to trial. Instead, we see her work as a lawyer more casually, talking to her clients and settling disputes between them on the streets, at homes, or at workplaces. Such as when we first met her, she was first referred to as Madame Ping's little assistant before we got to know her as a lawyer. Although I do admit it would be very satisfying to watch her burn her opponents to ash, metaphorically that is. I think showing her work outside the courtroom is quite refreshing as it paints her as a more community-oriented lawyer, rather than someone who's just interested in argumentation. We get to see other intricate aspects of legal work done in a more approachable manner, and this highlights Liyue's principles of agreement and social harmony as encompassed by the concept of contracts. Her community involvement and close relationships with her clients show us that the law can be found everywhere and not just in formal government or professional spaces. In Yanfei's eyes, and perhaps also in the eyes of the people of Liyue, the law is life, so it makes sense that we see her reaching out to people often. While some other characters in the game don't necessarily live and breathe their jobs, Yanfei very much does have a fixation with the law, to the point that she always seems to be thinking about it, considering her idle lines all have something to do with legal principles, and she always carries that thick book of legal knowledge with her wherever she goes. But at the same time, she's not so in your face to the point that she tries to show off her jargon even when it's not appropriate for the situation. And she's characterized as more warm, bubbly, accommodating, and quite chatty, rather than calculating and domineering, as you might expect from a successful lawyer, further exemplifying the fact that she's meant to be approachable as a lawyer, although she does charge rather high consultation fees. Her proficiency with the law seems to stem from her passion for it, rather than pure genius or ambition, so she's able to speak about it comfortably as if it were her hobby. I'm especially fond of how they depicted her familiarity with legal texts, because she is able to memorize some parts of them, but not to the point of completely avoiding memory lapses. To me, this makes it seem like she does indeed have a good memory, but because she spends so much time actually practicing the law, she probably doesn't tend to rely on rote memorization alone, which is why she must have forgotten a few minor indices already. And also, it's really relatable and adorable, like just look at her being all flustered, so cute. Instead, what she retains is her logical thought process, which is what's more necessary when it comes to the practice of law rather than the memorization alone. She's known to be very cunning to the point of being able to find loopholes, even in situations that aren't exactly legal, but have some kind of laws to them, like what she did in the Perilous Trails Archon Quest interlude, in which she was trying to find a way to outsmart the mysterious functions of the part of the chasm where they were trapped in. And yet, at the same time, her cunningness is not exactly the type where she's always looking devious and ready to pounce on her prey. I mean, people like that are quite cool, like we have Yelan, for example, but it's also nice to see some variation in that trait by having Yanfei not be sneaky but still possess the desire and tools to think outside the box and outsmart someone or something. That's especially important in dealing with the law because you are confined to techniques that are, well, legal rather than more underhanded ones. It's also quite funny to see how her very logical thought process isn't enough to aid her in all of her legal dealings, because some of them involve mediating between parties who are very emotional, irrational, and unreasonable, rendering her critical thinking useless, especially if she uses it to give advice to people who are too pea-brained to grasp what she's saying. I mean, it's such a huge problem for her that the magical door in the chasm even projected a scene of a civil dispute to sort of scare her. But the thing about this weakness of hers is that I view it as an indicator of how much effort she puts into her job, to the point of being emotionally taxed by the sheer stupidity of her clients, which probably makes her want to fry them like tofu. If she didn't think much of these civil disputes, divorces, or custody battles, she would have just easily brushed them off instead of worrying about how to properly lead both parties to a reasonable resolution. I believe that Yanfei's characteristics as a lawyer tend to have a sense of balance to them, which is considered another important value in Liyue's society. She's familiar with the law, but not to the point of remembering word for word like a robot. She's warm and approachable, but rational enough to distance herself from the situation and allow her to view it from a more objective standpoint. She cares for her clients, yet she also recognizes their flaws, and she tries her best to excel in practicing all areas of the law, while also acknowledging the areas which are not her strong suit. Even when it comes to work and recreation, she does strike a balance between chatting incessantly about legal matters which are interesting to her, and allowing herself to engage in other things such as shopping, fishing, making tofu, and apparently even hosting cooking competitions. And she also stresses the importance of rest as going hand in hand with work. These all make her a very essential component in the intricate system which is Liyue's society, who remains to be influential to her clients. Her characteristics and the balance between them makes her a model citizen that many future generations can look up to, since, she'll still be alive by then. Being an Adeptus seems to have very heavy implications as they carry the huge burden of being close allies of Rex Lapis, who would have greatly struggled to rule over Liyue without their unwavering dedication to him. However, Yanfei doesn't seem to carry a heavy burden like the other Adepti, and seems to behave more like a regular human being, since she didn't sign a contract with Rex Lapis due to being born in an era of peace where the Adepti no longer needed to be conscripted to war. So on the surface, it seems like Yanfei is only an Adeptus for the sake of being special and looking cute with horns, since her lifestyle is barely affected by her bloodline. But I think there's more to what's on the surface, because I think if you look deeper into her character, it seems like her entire relationship with the concept of the law is influenced by her status as an adeptus. Because although as a lawyer she has to deal with many human struggles and empathize with them, even to the point of being intertwined with their lives, she seems to be able to view the principles of the law from a more bird's eye view. What I mean is that she is more concerned with the true essence and meaning of the law, rather than viewing it as just a compilation of arbitrary rules, being able to see the overarching themes in the rules imposed by the state. Not to say that people who aren't adepti aren't capable of this, because of course they are, but she even goes as far as to say that she envisions a sort of post-law world where the people have internalized the principles of the law without needing specific rules to guide them. That's honestly quite progressive, and she's able to imagine this somewhat radical future, probably because of her immortality. It shows that she doesn't only think of what's possible in this current generation, but she's envisioned the world going forward in a very hopeful and profound way, daring to dream the impossible almost, and this is where her so-called wise innocence comes into play. She's so selfless to the point of being willing to give up her job if that time comes around, and she'll resign herself to wrapping the contents of the law. Go spit them bars, girl, I'll be your #1 fan. Now that we've gone through the major points about Yanfei's character, why don't we explore some footnotes I'd like to add to this nifty little analysis. She can put people to sleep by reading the codices of Liyue law, and I'm thinking I probably need that right now because my sleep schedule is way off, but there's also a possibility that I wouldn't get bored by what she's saying, unless it's really very nitty-gritty, hyper-specific stuff, especially if it's from the civil code, I guess. Her love for tofu is really cute. I don't know, tofu is just such a cute kind of food because it's soft and you can cut it up into really cute squares. But I'm also biased because I'm vegetarian and sometimes there's nothing else for me to eat but tofu. Still, it's nice knowing that Yanfei likes it and that she's very particular about cooking it properly according to some cultural principles. One of her character stories hints at her being some kind of overthinker who reads a lot into things, and honestly, what a mood. Seeing how good she is at appraising and estimating prices, she's probably already the haggling queen of Liyue, and good for her, she gets to save a lot. Her family does seem to have a very loving vibe, and they make sure that she gets to eat warm food. My only worry is her mom being a mortal, but then again, children do tend to outlive their parents. Anyway, there's always Hu Tao who can always provide assistance with that matter. I hope her dad will be fine though, because he seems like a really nice guy who loves her mom dearly. Fontaine is said to be the court of the Archon of Justice, and Yanfei says that the laws there are even more complicated than those in Liyue. So that makes me wonder if there will be any future characters from that region who also work in the legal field. Perhaps some of them will be judges, I don't know. Either way, I'm very loyal to my lawyer. I won't be hiring anyone else. Those Fontaine lawyers can suck it. They probably get paid a ton already. So to summarize my case, I'd say that we should all be hiring Yanfei right now. At least if you want your funds to stay intact and your will to be carried out. If you want to die in a ditch at night with no one to fish you out and help your family members divide your assets, then I guess don't hire her. Okay, that was a bit much, but what I'm trying to say is Liyue is lucky to have the best lawyer ever, and we're also lucky to avail of her services. Her arson services, at least, for gameplay. I hope that we'll get to see more of her in future events, and I hope that she gets to apprehend more criminals and defend more wrongly accused individuals for as long as Liyue needs it. And then she can kickstart her rap career when everyone else is at peace.
내가 직접 만든 화염을 삼키는 벌이란 기술은 고대 사적, 리월 법전, 율례 총집에 기록돼 있는 돌을 먹는 형벌에서 따온 거야. 어망제구는 계약의 신이고 계약은 일종의 제약이라고도 볼 수 있어. 그게 무슨 말이냐고? 먼 옛날부터 니월왕은 계약의 도시였던 거지.
That's all for today, and thanks for listening. Let me know if you remember any more badass lawyer moments from Yanfei, and I'll see you next time.